Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Southeastern Vermont CISMA webinar. For those of you who are new to this program, the CISMA is an acronym that stands for Cooperative Invasive Species Management Association, and we are a partnership of public and private organizations, agencies, and contractors who work to combat the growing problem of invasive plant species in Southeastern Vermont. Our presenter tonight is Andrew Morrison, who is coming to us live from his car. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him. He'll stop at a couple of opportunities during the program for questions. You can also put questions in the chat box and we'll address them at kind of convenient stopping points.
Thank you, Corey. Can everybody hear me? You can give a wave or use the raise a hand. Great. My name is Andrew Morrison. I'm a consulting forester in Windham County, and I'm a member of the CISMA. And you know, as a consulting forester, every year I walk about 2,000 acres of woodland I haven't ever been in before. And so mapping and mapping tools are a really important part of my job and help me to get familiar with the lay of the land very quickly. And so because of that, I've discovered a number of mapping tools that are really rather interesting, but also very accessible. And so out of that grew this interest in sharing those with a wider community of individuals. And so much of the technology that I'm talking about this evening is stuff I use every day for my job. And some of it are things that I pay for a subscription because I use it professionally, but all of these tools are entirely free. And so I want to share those tools with you, and hopefully you'll get a better understanding of how to use them, and in turn use them to better understand your neighborhood, your woodland, and you can also use them as fantastic tools for helping to map and manage invasive plant species, which is sort of how this falls into the CISMA this evening. But they're tools that you could use for a wide variety of other things, and we'll talk about that as we get to each of the tools. So the format this evening is the reason I'm sitting in my car, one, because there's good internet here rather than at my house, but also because a lot of what I'm going to be doing today is live screen sharing of these tools so that you get to see the tools in action. And so during those screen sharing segments, I don't get to see the chat. I don't get to see if you're raising your hands or making faces at me, etc. So at the end of, we're going to have this as two different parts. And at the end of segment one, I'll come back out of screen sharing. We can have a conversation, ask questions, do any clarifications. And then I'll start the second half of the presentation and do the same thing afterwards, fielding a group of questions. And I think Corey's going to help us out by keeping an eye on the chat. So if you want to ask questions as we go, Corey can sort of feed them to me during that end of the first session. So thanks for bearing with that format, but I think it's really going to pay dividends in terms of you getting to see exactly how this stuff works in real time, as opposed to me just showing slides or screenshots or talking about it. So the first mapping tool that we're going to be talking about and looking at is an online map tool that covers all of the state of Vermont. This is something that the state has put together, and it's free and it's available online. And I'm going to show you how that tool works, how to navigate through it, some layers or data that might be of interest for you as a landowner, and then how to export what you've been doing on that online mapping tool in a way that you can then bring it onto a phone or a tablet. And the second segment will be opening up that data on your phone or your tablet with an app called Avenza PDF map. And I'll walk you through some of the features of Avenza PDF map, how you can use it to navigate, mark locations, measure areas, and all sorts of other really neat features with that custom map that you made online using the web mapping tool. So those are going to be the two segments. And we'll start with the web mapping tool. So I'm going to start screen sharing and we'll go from there. Okay, so here's the desktop of my application. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up an Internet Explorer. So I use Mozilla Firefox down here. Yep. And the first thing it's going to say is, do you want to launch that meeting? So here we are at the homepage of the Internet Explorer. And to get to the Vermont interactive map, you can do an internet search for something like Vermont. Oh, look, interactive map viewer. It's already coming up as a suggestion. So this is the link we want. And it's hosted by the Vermont Center for Geographic Information, VCGI. And this is what it's going to look like. This is Vermont's interactive map viewer. And I'm just going to do a little introduction to what we're looking at here. So up at the top, you see you've got a search bar and some other things. Right below that, it says home and then navigation and data, draw, query, and measure. Here's the home tab. We're on the navigation. Whoop, sorry about that. Didn't mean to click that. We're on the navigation tab right here. And you see we have some tools available to us, like pan and zoom in and zoom out, zoom to a town, etc. And this is kind of the starting point. And I want to share the bookmarks over on the side here. I'm going to click on that because the bookmarks are actually very useful. We can use a bookmark to get to something like Windham County. If I click on that, it's going to zoom me to Windham County. There's also, a zoom to town feature. I can type in the town, like town of Putney. But I'm also capable, if I have zoomed into my map and I like where I'm at, I can click on bookmarks and I can click at the bottom here to bookmark my current extent. And I've actually done that. I'm going to click on Putney Central School here, which happens to be where I'm parked. And it's going to zoom me to that location so that if you're making a map of your property and this is, you're obviously going to visit the same place over and over again, you don't need to navigate or zoom into your property every single time. You can set a bookmark so you can get there very quickly. The other tools that are here in the navigation, if I had zoomed into this location and it was a mistake, you'll see up at the top, there is a button to go to the previous extent. And that will bring me back to wherever I was recently. You can also zoom to the full extent, which would bring you back to the state of Vermont. And then the zoom in and zoom out tools allow you to draw an area in a square and the map will zoom into that square. And the pan tool allows you to grab the map and move it. So, I happen to know that this town is Putney, and that's where I happen to be, but I'm going to use that bookmark to get us very quickly back to the Putney Central School. So those are the navigation tools, and they're going to allow you to move around the map area. Then on the left-hand side of my screen, you'll see that I have an area called layers. And these layers are, think of them like pizza toppings. We can turn them on and off. I'm going to click the building footprints and those red buildings disappear. I click it again and those red building footprints reappear. And just like pizza toppings, these layers are one on top of another. And so the red buildings are obscuring what's below them, kind of like slices of pepperoni on top of our pizza. Whereas other layers might color the entire screen and the entire screen background. So I'm going to introduce you to some layers that I think are particularly useful for the types of mapping that I do and maybe that you would be doing as a landowner. So we're going to start in these popular layers, and I actually don't appreciate the building footprints. I'm going to turn those off. And later on, we will see another way to see where buildings are. But I am going to turn on this next one called parcels. And those gray lines are a rough approximation of where the parcels are. This is not a survey. So if you're looking at your property and you say to yourself, that's not where I thought my parcel line was, these parcel lines are taken from the tax map and may not be 100% accurate. I would say I often modify where parcel lines are when I'm doing my work based on better information like stone walls or other features like that. So, but it's a good way to get a sense of where your property is and where your neighbor's property is. So I'm also going to turn on the contours. So now we've got 1 foot contours that just appeared. They're the light. I'm going to turn them off and turn them back on again. It's those light beige lines giving us some sense of, whoops, previous extent, giving us some sense of the terrain. So those are the popular layers that I like to use. I'm going to minimize the popular layers. And the next ones I want to show you are these property ownership layers. So I'm going to open that up, and there's some options under that, one of which is public town forests. So public town forest is now highlighted, and you can see here's the Putney Central School Forest, which is a pretty large area of land. You could also, if you wanted to make a map before you went on a hike, it might be of interest to you to turn on the Agency of Natural Resources public land, could tell you where the park that you're hiking in is, etc. So those are some layers that you might find interesting when you're making your own map. So the next series of layers, and as you can see, I'm skipping over a lot. There's quite a lot of options here. The next set I want to talk about is this set called LiDAR. And LiDAR is a laser-based elevation model that's taken from low-flying aircraft, and it allows us to see what the surface of the Earth looks like. And so I'm going to turn this off for a second and this off for a second. So the first LiDAR I'm going to show you is a hillshade, and it's kind of what we've been looking at already. So this is a model of the elevation of the surface of the ground. And you can see that if I zoom in, I apologize. If I zoom in, you can see that this is a good way that you could tell exactly where a stream flows. You can see that stream channel as it comes through the Putney Central School. It also, this has enough resolution that you can see things like stone walls. So I'm going to zoom in here. And we're going to look, here's a hedgerow. And here's another hedgerow that has a stone wall in it now going horizontally across my map. So if you are looking for your property boundary and you don't think it's exactly where the map property boundary line shows, but you do know that there's a stone wall there, this can be one way to verify where your property boundary is. And you can also find stone walls in your forest. It's a really very fascinating tool for exploring the landscape. So that is the LiDAR. I'm going to turn off the hillshade. And the next thing I'm going to turn on is this digital surface model. So the digital surface model, rather than show the ground level, is showing the next layer up of elevation. And so this is going to show me buildings and vegetation like trees. And the state has colored this. If I click on normalized digitation surface, the state has colored this so that I get a sense of the respective elevation of different types of vegetation. So we can see that the forest is colored you know, shades of oranges and yellows and greens because it's tall. This scrubbier shrub material is shorter, it's that dark blue. And then the flat background is open ground surface like grass. So, you know, this is just a really fascinating way to explore a property and to explore elevation. So if you're interested in something like that, LiDAR is just a really fascinating tool. I'm actually going to turn off the LiDAR now. Oh, I did want to note that on, let's say we look at this digital surface model, you'll notice on the right-hand side, there's a slider, and I can move that slider and it will change the intensity of that layer so that I can make it semi see-through on top of the layer before it. And that is true of several of these layers and is a good tool if you're trying to sort of get to see multiple layers at the same time. All right, I'm going to turn off the LiDAR. And the next thing I wanted to show you was in the recreation. The recreation tab has a number of things, but ones that might be interesting for folks are things like public trails. So if I zoom out, you can see that the trails in the Putney Central School Forest appear here. Or vast trail intersections, which might be of interest to other recreation users. You know, if you're looking to create a custom map of an area that you like to utilize in the winter for your snowmobile, and you want to have a map for that, the vast connections are also available through this tool. So those are the recreation items that are available. And then the last place I want to look at is this tab called All Imagery. I'm going to expand that, and I'm going to turn that on. And this is going to bring up satellite imagery or aerial imagery that many of you are probably familiar with from mapping tools. And I want to zoom in because show you how the quality of this imagery, because it's incredibly impressive. Sorry, I keep on touching that and highlighting it, but you know, this is the playground at the Putney Central School, and I could tell you from this imagery how many swings are on the swing set there. Right, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 swings available for children at the Putney Central School. So this is some really impressive, high quality imagery that is available. And something you may want to do with this imagery to make it appear less flat is if we turn back on our LiDAR, and we turn on the hill shade, and then we decrease how solid our imagery is, we should there you go. It has a little bit of a 3D cast to it now. It gives you a sense that those buildings aren't exactly flat. So it's a way that you can play around with the available imagery and tools to help give texture to what it is that you're interested in looking at. I'm actually gonna, sorry, turn that hill shade back off. Oop. So those are the navigation tools, and those are the layer tools that you might want to use to create the maps that you're interested in looking at. I also want to point out some other tools that are available to you as well. So if we go up to the top under data, I can upload data to this. So if you're somebody who already has been doing mapping and you've been using something like Google Earth, if I click on upload data, it will take different types of supported formats, including KML, which is the format that Google Earth uses. It will take a GPX file, which is a file format that many GPS units can export to. You may even be able to bring in data from something like a wrist fitness monitor or something like that. So you're able to add data to this map if that's something that you're interested in doing. So there's also a query tool, and I've accidentally clicked on this several times today, but the query tool is going to, if I click on point, the query tool is going to bring up some information. For example, I just clicked on the central school and it's brought up the parcel information so that I can see, let's see, the source of this is from a scanned tax map. It's going to tell me the grand list number and some other information like that. So land with buildings, it belongs to Putney Central School, it's zoned commercial. So that query tool will give you information about whatever it is that you have clicked on, and you may find that helpful when you're doing your maps. There's also in here, there's a measure tool and a drawing tool. And I'm going to go back to navigation and zoom back into my bookmark because we've gotten a little bit lost here. And the last tool I want to introduce you to here is going to be in the Home tab. And in the Home tab, we have the ability to export the map that we're looking at the moment. And so if I click on the export tool up at the top there, I can export my map image. And this part is a little bit important in terms of being able to do the next step. So I want to choose that I would like this JPEG format as what my export image is going to be. And I want to click to include georeference data. And by doing that, it's going to allow the app that we're going to use on our phone or our tablet to open this map up later. And then I'm going to create my image. It's going to prepare the image. So we're going to wait for a second here. And then to download and display the map, click View Image. And I'm going to click View Image, and I want to download this. So I can go to my downloads, and that was from the last time I did this webinar. And here we are. It's called export.zip, and it's in my downloads. Likely this will be happening on your computer. So it's now in the download folder of your computer. And from the download folder of your computer, in order to get it on your phone or your tablet, you're going to have to put it somewhere that's accessible from the internet. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next segment. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. And I'm available to field questions if people have them. You can either raise your hand with your video on, or you can use the hand wave thing, or you can use the chat, whatever is most convenient for people. Mitchell Warren, we've got a question there.
Hi, thanks so much. Super helpful. I was just curious, if you upload information as you were showing, does that then make it part of the publicly accessible data going forward, or is that exclusive to what you're uploading for your own map?
I'm nearly positive it is exclusive to your own map. Yeah, that's not data that becomes part of the public interface. That the web mapping tool is really, it's a one-way pipeline. It's allowing you to display data, but it won't, it's very limited in what you can do. In fact, you can't even, if you wanted roads to be displayed as bright red instead of white, it's not an option that's available to you. So it really is sort of a one-way pipeline, but it is a good question. But I don't think your providing that data to anybody else. Corey, I think I just saw a chat question.
Yep. Far Mice wants to know, how long do bookmarks, etc., persist on the map? Do you have to log in for it to persist?
Yeah, I do know that if I'm using the same computer, using the same web browsing tool, the bookmark has remained for quite a long time. If you went to visit somebody else, you know, you wanted to show your neighbor this cool tool and you sat down at their computer, you may have to create an account to be able to have something like bookmarks follow you. I've never created an account, so I don't know what advantages creating an account might have, but I do know that those bookmarks are remembered by your, you know, they're using a cookie on your web browser to remember those bookmarks that you've created. So they'll be there next session as well.
Great, thanks. Other questions for Andrew before he moves on?
We'll have a second opportunity for questions after the second piece. So don't feel like at the end of it, you can't ask a question that would have been helpful during the web mapping tools. But the next piece we're going to talk about is using this Avenza app. And so it's an app that is available for any tablet or phone using an Apple, so iOS or Android operating system. And Corey, I'm realizing I should have had a link to post there, because the Avenza PDF map website is a good place to access the app. But you can go to the Google Play and you can search Avenza PDF map and it will come up there. Or you can go to the App Store on Apple and search and it will come up there as well. And it comes in a free version and it comes in a pro version, which is a paid subscription. And the free version allows you to do everything we're going to look at tonight. It allows you to have up to 3 maps that you're working with at any time. It's really an incredible, the free version is incredible. I pay for a subscription because I use this tool for a business and that's what the company asks for. But the free version would do everything that I do at work and more. So don't feel like it's something you need to purchase. And if you have 3 maps in there, let's say you've got your house and you've got your camp somewhere that you go visit, and then you put a map for a hiking trail that you're going to this weekend, and then you want to do a 4th map, you can delete one of the existing 3 and put a new map into the app and it will work. And then later on, you can load a map that you've used before back into the app and it will work. And I can show you how to do those swapping back and forth. So you shouldn't feel like that 3 maps is a limit, but if you're just using it to navigate your own property, then 1 map is maybe all you'll ever create and put on the app. So, okay, I'm going to go back to screen sharing. We're going to talk about the process of bringing in that file we exported into the Avenza map app, and then we'll explore the app and what its different tools are and how it works. So here we go. All right, so here I am back at my desktop, and you'll notice in the upper left-hand corner is that application, Avenza Maps. That icon may be useful when you're searching for this. And the first thing I want to do is I want to add a map into my app. And so at the upper right-hand corner, I have a plus sign. And this will allow me to add the map from some different storage locations. The ones that are preloaded here, I can import a map from iTunes file sharing because I'm using this on an iOS system, using it on an iPad mini. I can bring it in from Dropbox, which is what I typically do. or I have the ability to look at other storage locations, including the download folder on my Firefox, and I can also access Dropbox from here or any other cloud-based service that I had linked. So if you're somebody who uses Google Drive or iCloud or trying to think of other common cloud-based services, there are lots of options to be able to import your map from somewhere on the internet where you've stored it. I believe you can also bring it in from an attachment on an email. So that's some options to get it onto your tablet or your phone. If you are somebody who uses a Mac computer and you're also using a tablet that is an Apple product, you can share the map using the airdrop as well. So if that's something that you're familiar with, it works very well. So I'm going to open up, I've got a file here called Putney Map. It's the same map we were looking at tonight, except that I spent a little extra time making it fancy. So I'm going to click on that. And here we are back at the Putney Central School. And you'll notice that there's a blue dot. That blue dot is me sitting in my car at the bus turnaround at Putney Central School. And many of the layers that we talked about are here. So the contours are here. We've got the imagery where we can see the buildings and the fields. And I've got some LiDAR in the background giving us a little bit of texture. So those are all that's the image that I created when we were using the web mapping tool. And now we've got that image open and the app knows exactly where I'm sitting. It knows that I'm sitting in my car at that blue dot in the bus turnaround. And the first thing I want to show you is some of the navigation tools for the app itself. So at the bottom left of my screen, there's a little arrow. It's currently hollow. If I click on the arrow once, it will center the screen directly on my blue dot. So if I move back over here and I click it again, it centers the screen directly on my blue dot. If I click it a second time, it rotates the screen so that you can see what direction I'm currently facing. If I face towards the school building, it's got me a little wonky right now, but if I face towards the street, you can see that it has me an arrow showing that I'm facing the street. If I face towards the school, you'll see that as an arrow showing that I'm facing towards the school. So, and up at the top, it's showing you, you know, I'm currently facing at 334 degrees northwest. And that's useful if you're navigating and you want to know which direction you're headed. If I touch the screen and I drag it, I now get this gray set of crosshairs. You can see it on that building, or you could really see it if I put it over the pond. And that allows me to move around the map. I'm going to click one more time. Oh, I should also note up at the right-hand corner, we have a compass icon. If I click that compass icon, it will spin the map back so that north is up, which is the typical orientation for most maps. I'm going to center us back on the blue dot. So that's how you can use the navigation to move yourself around. And the next thing I want to introduce you to is the ability to mark a point. So I'm going to get that set of crosshairs back. There they are. And I want to mark a point on this map. So I'm going to move those crosshairs so they're on top of the public swimming pool here. And down at the bottom left-hand corner, right next to my arrow, is a little push pin. And if I click on that, it's going to bring up this window to add a place mark. And I can name this place mark something like public pool. And I can select an icon for it by clicking one of these icons that I've used before, or if I click on the 3 dots, I get some other options. So let's see if we've got one that looks like swimming. Here we go. So we'll click on that swimming icon. I could take photos and attach them to this location, and I can put a description. So I'm going to type in a description here, like my son Caleb loves this pool. So there we go. And that description is now attached to that. So I'm going to submit, and I now have a little icon on top of the Putney Public Pool, and it's got the swimming icon. And if I click on there, I can see that information that I typed, etc. So that's how to use these crosshairs to mark a location. If I click so that we're centered back on the blue dot, and I click the push pin, this will mark the location where I'm at. So I can say, I am here. And now we see that that red push pin is right on top of my current location. So that's another way that we can use that marking point tool. So I'm going to mark some other locations here because they'll be useful later on for demonstrating some other stuff. So down the road from the Putney Central School is this location. This is Hidden Springs Maple. They also have ice cream. Who doesn't love ice cream? So I'm going to mark this as a place to eat. We're going to call it ice cream. So, and open in the summer. So there we've got our ice cream icon. And, you know, these are things like ice cream or swimming pools. But if I was working along this woodland edge right here, and I saw a buckthorn plant that I wanted to remember its location and get back to later on, I've got my crosshairs on there. I'm going to hit the push pin, and I'm going to name this 6 foot tall buckthorn, and I'm going to give it an alert icon and say kill it dead. So there we've go. We've got the location of our buckthorn. As you can imagine, if you're standing there with your blue dot, you can also put a pin at your blue dot. You'll notice that my blue dot for a moment there had a halo around it. The halo actually indicates the perceived accuracy of the location. If your blue halo is really large, then you have poor accuracy at the moment. If you can't see the halo at all, you have very good accuracy. And I can tell you that that blue dot is exactly where I am parked right now. So we've got really good accuracy at the moment. So those are the basics of the being able to mark a point, both marking a point where you're standing, as well as marking a point somewhere else. So the tool also, if I go down to the right-hand corner and click those 3 dots, I've got some other tools that are available to me here. And so the first one I'm going to introduce you to is the draw and measure tool. And by tapping somewhere on the map, I can measure a length. So if we wanted to measure the length from the pitching mound to home plate, the answer is 43.14 feet. And I don't know if that's standard. Somebody out there can answer that during the questions and comments period. Right now, I'm still just in this tool. If I come down to the bottom here and I press the check mark, it will lock that feature in place. It's called line number 2. It tells me its distance, and I can label it just like I could a point. So something like pitching distance. I can change the color of that line. I can change the thickness of that line, whatever I would like to do. So another application of creating a line like that, this is a line I created before. If you thought that there was a stone wall here that was not visible on the map and you wanted to mark it out, you can mark it out and color it something like a black line to indicate that it was a stone wall at the property boundary. So that's another way to use that line tool. Also under that draw and measure option, so if we go back to draw and measure, we can make shapes, not just lines. So if I start making a line, this area right here is the Putney Central School garden. If I start making a line around it, I'm tapping at each of my corners. And then I press down here, it will start to fill in that shape as a solid shape. And I can click the check mark, whoops, down here. And now this is area number 1. It is the school garden. And we can see that it is it's 1/10 of an acre. So, and we can change the color on this, make it something garden-like. We're going to fill it in with green and make it a little more see-through with the slider. And there we go. We've now marked out the 1/10 of an acre for the central school garden. So an application that would be useful for this sort of thing for invasive species management is if you had been walking through the woods, let's say you were walking through here and you had marked some places like corner 1, corner 2. We're gonna make this a triangle. And corner 3 as areas where you're walking, and in the middle of that were some invasive plant species. So you kind of stayed to the outside and you marked some corners. Now you can go back to that draw and measure tool and you can connect your corners. And now you know you've got about 1/8 of an acre of whatever that invasive plant species was. And you can label it and maybe take some photos. So let's say that unfortunately this is Japanese barberry. And you can put a note to yourself, something like save for the contractor to remove. And so that's a way that you can use those push pins and the draw and measure tool to help sort of identify, areas of your property that you're interested in managing, and also get a pretty quick estimate of how large you think those areas are. So that's the draw and measure tool. There is also, if I click on those tools again, I can record a GPS track, navigate to a destination, etc. The other way to get to those same tools is by swiping up here. If I swipe up, it tells me some information first about my location. So here's my current location. I'm standing still. I'm at 425 feet above sea level, etc. If I go to navigation, I can choose to navigate to a feature. Like if I want to go from where I am back to that tall buckthorn. You can see the map has now provided me with a blue line that's showing me that I'm 740 feet away from there. And based on the fact that I'm standing still, I'm never going to get there. But if you were walking, this could help you have a bearing and an estimate of how far to get to where it was that you were heading whatever that destination might be. I'm going to stop navigating. The other tool that you have available to you is a tracking tool. So if instead of, let me actually unplug and we'll do this live. If instead of guessing at where an area was, you wanted to walk around it, you could start tracking and start walking. When I'm zoomed in here, you can see that halo, which is telling you how accurate my estimate is. So I'm walking towards the playground and then back towards the pin where we started. And I'm going to stop. And now that track is saved. And I can, just like I did with all the other things, I can name that track and set a description on it. So we can name that track something like stepped out of the car and whatever else we want to do. So if you create a feature and you decide that it wasn't useful to you, you can click on it. And under that information, there's the opportunity to delete it. So we're going to get rid of that. And we're back there. So those are the track and navigate tools. So the last tool I want to talk about here is how you could export this information. So you'll notice when I clicked on something and I looked at the information, there is the ability here to export that right from here. I can save it to my files or something like that. But if I want to export everything from my map, I can click back down at the push pin with 3 lines next to it down at the bottom corner. Hold on, I'm going to move that out of my way. And it says that I've got 7 place marks and 4 tracks or lines. At the bottom corner, I press the little icon there and I can export this to others. And it's going to name it the same as my map. Right now it's going to export in KML format with it, which is something I could open with, say, Google Earth. Or if you remember, I could also open it back in that web mapping portal. So you can take data you created with the app, bring it into the web mapping portal, and make it a permanent part of your next map if you wanted to. Here I can choose which features I'm interested in actually exporting. If I don't want to export all of them, you know, I could turn some of these off if that was helpful, etc. And if I go to export, it's going to allow me to save it to files or to Dropbox or wherever else I have on the cloud. So I'm going to close out of there. So we've now navigated around our custom map. We've made some points and lines, and we've exported. If you have a map of your property that you have all your trails on, and you want to, somebody comes to visit your property, like your cousin, and they say, hey, I want to go for a hike. And you say, oh, here, get this app. And they put the app on their phone, and then you can share with them your map image, and then you can share with them the trails that you've exported, and they can come in here and they can import that layer into their map to see where all your trails are. This is also useful if you want to delete a map to put more than 3 maps on your phone without losing the data. Because if I go and I delete this map, whoops, it's going to say, warning, delete this map, and it will delete all the data along with that map. So if I bring that map image back later, it won't have the garden on it or the ice cream or any of those other pieces of data. I will have to import them back from wherever I saved them. So I'm going to come back to Zoom here. And that's Avenza PDF map. So I'm happy to take any questions that folks may have about either Avenza PDF map or the web mapping portal. And yeah, I'm here as long as folks are interested. So looks like David Post has his hand up.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can, David.
Great. First of all, thanks very much. This was super helpful. I've been looking for this sort of stuff for a long time. So I was a little unclear about, so suppose I have the app on my phone, and I walk the trail out behind my house. Is it keeping, and I want to save that. I want to keep that on the map and maybe add to it tomorrow. I'll walk a different trail from my house and then we'll get a full trail map. Does it do that automatically? Or, well, if I put it on tracking, does it keep the track like when you were walking around?
Yeah.
Does it save that? Do I have to do something special to do that? How does that work?
So David, when I clicked stop, it automatically saves that track. That orange line gets saved. And if you decide later that, you know, you didn't like that track or you didn't think it was accurate, you would have to delete it. But the default is that it saves it.
Okay. And so it will be there the next time, right?
It will, yeah. Anything that, any places you mark, any tracks that you save, stay on the app with that map for as long as that map is on the app. So, yep.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Looks like Libby and Ken, how are you guys tonight? You have a question?
Great. This is so cool. So cool. So with the similar question about mapping trails that we've created, so they're not on any other map.
Yeah.
We don't have internet access and very good cell service out in the woods.
Right.
Is that a limitation? I'm guessing it is.
It's not. So you will need the internet to do the online web mapping portal. That's pretty obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And you will need the internet to get that map image onto your phone or your tablet. Once it's on your phone or your tablet, you no longer need internet or cell phone reception for the app to work.
Oh,
Wow,
cool.
great.
Yeah, the app is accessing the GPS chip that's in your phone or your tablet, and it's using that instead. So, you know, I use this in places in Halifax that haven't seen phone or internet since, you know, since the dinosaurs had it. And yeah, it's fantastic because it works entirely. Now, I have gotten myself into some, I was in a deep stream valley in the Berkshires and lost GPS. My phone was no longer able to find any sort of GPS. And then the app no longer knows where you are. The blue dot disappears. It says, sorry, not on the map anymore. But you've got to be really in kind of a deep hole for that to happen. So, and then the new phones seem to have a GPS chip that is, and antenna that is somewhat equivalent to your average handheld GPS unit. So the technology has gotten much better there.
As good as the hummingbirds.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Thank you. So
yeah, I got another hand up. Is it Fahar? Is that how you pronounce your name? I apologize.
It's silent, so it's just far.
Okay.
But yeah, thanks for this. Has been awesome. I've used some other mapping tools on my phone, Locus Pro, but this looks a lot more amenable to doing this kind of work. So I really appreciate it. I'm wondering if you want to have a more refined polygon to like you said, to define an area of invasive species or something, is it possible to walk a path, sort of circumambulate it and use a GPS track to make a polygon? Is that possible?
You can make a track that does circumnavigate it, but I don't believe that the app will let you turn that into a polygon. I could be wrong about that. You'd have to mess around with it. But what I have done in the past is I have walked the perimeter of something that is of interest and then used the drawing tool to sort of approximate that area to a greater degree of accuracy than just putting push pins. Or if you're somebody who is using a desktop mapping program like QGIS or ArcMap, you can bring that track in there and get a very accurate polygon from a tool like that. But I don't think that the app will connect the ends of a track. I don't think the tracking tool isn't really designed to be used in that fashion, although I understand the desire to. So yeah, I think you can mess around with it, but my best guess is no, it doesn't do that for you. Any other questions? Jill.
Oops. Hi. Wonderful presentation.
Thanks.
I saw that you were recording this. Are we going to have access to the recording?
Yes, the recording will be sent to everybody who registered, and it'll also be posted on the Conservation District website.
Excellent. Because it's going to take a little practice.
Yeah, I'm happy that it was recorded. I hope that folks will click back into it and look at the various the different steps, because I know there were a lot of them, and I'm happy that it's available that way. So
yeah, and this could even have a part A, part B. It could be a yearly thing as the software, expands, because this is nice.
Yeah, it's a really fantastic tool, and I had used iterations of it actually now for about 5 years, but all of them had required that I had an ArcGIS subscription, which if you're a private homeowner is available to you. It's $100 a year to get access to the ArcGIS, ArcMap. But the learning curve on that program is super steep. It's not incredibly user-friendly like the interactive web mapping tool is. So yeah, when I discovered that you were able to pair these two tools together, I was super excited because I think it is relatively user-friendly and it's free. And so I hope it helps a lot of folks get out there and make some maps and enjoy their property in a different way, or do a better job of managing their invasive plants or birding or whatever it is that you're interested in. So. Any other questions out there?
You have some comments in the chat box about folks appreciating the program.
Well, thank you all very much for attending.
Last call for questions for Andrew.
Is that a question, Jill, or a bye-bye? Bye-bye. All right, all. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it and have a good evening.